All right. Okay. So we are recording. And let's begin. So welcome to candidates and attendees to the Poway Democratic Club's 2000 Candidate Forum. The Poway Democratic Club provides our members with information and opportunities to take action to help promote fair, inclusive, and responsible government at all levels. My name is Amit Asaravala. I am the current president, and I'll be the moderator tonight. We also have Jana Johnson, our vice president. She will be keeping time for the candidates. And we have Carla Hernandez there behind our Poway logo. She will be behind the scenes helping to manage Zoom and making sure that everything runs smoothly. One quick aside, so we're holding 3 sessions tonight. Because of the way Zoom webinars work, some of the panelists from some of the later sessions, if they happen to follow their invitee link early, they might pop into an earlier session. So Carla's going to do her best to quickly usher them back into the attendees area. And if that happens, we apologize in advance. If it interrupts a candidate while you're answering a question, we'll pause and give you time, additional time at the end there. Our first session is with the candidates for Poway Unified School Board Area E, which covers South Poway and some additional nearby areas. Kimberly Beatty, the current trustee in that area, is not running for re-election. So we want to extend a thank you to our candidates, Jimmy, Karam, and Cindy Sytsma. Thank you for running for office and for joining us and taking time out of your night to answer questions. Before I hand it off to you, I just want to quickly go over the format for tonight. So candidates will have 2 minutes for opening statements. At the end, you'll have 2 minutes for closing statements. In between, I'll be asking approximately 10 questions, depending on the time that we have. And you'll each have 1 minute to answer. I know that's short, but I know that you've done a number of these forums at this point, so hopefully you're feeling confident in your ability to be succinct in your answers. The questions were generated by the board and club members and the guests who wrote in to us over the past few weeks. Though we are a Democratic club, we've tried our best to be as fair as possible with these questions. We're not trying to do gotcha questions or tip the balance in favor of Democratic candidates. And that said, though, because it is a Democratic club and you are speaking to Democratic members, the questions are likely about issues that are most important to Democrats in Poway and the nearby areas. And the questions were not shared with anyone outside of the board. Any questions from the candidates before we begin? No? Okay, great. So we'll start alphabetically with opening statements. So Jimmy, you have 2 minutes and may begin, and Jana will be keeping time.
Okay, so hi, my name is Jimmy Karam, running for school board, as we mentioned. I have 4 children. We've been living in Poway Unified since 2007. My 2 oldest have gone through the system through Creekside, Garden Road, Twin Peaks, and Poway. I have a 9th grader and a 2nd grader. My 9th grader is at Poway High, and my 2nd grader is at Garden Road. I'm a retired military officer, a supply corps officer, essentially business manager of the Navy kind of thing. With that being said, my last tour in the Navy was at the United States Naval Academy, where I got to teach economics, and I was also serving as the associate chair for the economics department. One of my biggest highlights there was helping create and implement a STEM-centric economics curriculum and degree. And it was like a 2-year endeavor, and it required myself to resolve many conflicts inside and outside the department among individuals and organizations alike. I still teach. I really enjoy teaching, so I'm at Palomar teaching as an adjunct professor there. And my day job, I'm a program manager. I currently have a staff of 45, an engineering staff of 45 people spread across 50 different projects. And my education includes a Bachelor of Science from Naval Academy, an MBA from USC, and a performance psychology degree, master's in that from National. I bring a set of skills and experience that is unmatched by any other candidate and current board member. I'm also a certified mental performance consultant with the Association for Applied Sports Psychology, and I've volunteered over 400 hours with Poway High football team as their leadership and mental skills coach for the past 2 seasons. I'm running for office because I'm all about serving and giving back to the community. And when electing someone for this position, I believe it's imperative to elect someone that possesses a broad set of skills that is directly transferable to the school board trustees' roles and responsibilities. And I'm planning to prove to all of you that I'm that candidate, and so I can gain your trust and your vote coming up this week. All right, thank you again. My name is Jimmy Karam.
Great, thanks, Jimmy. Cindy Sytsma, over to you.
Thank you. Good evening. My name is Dr. Cindy Sytsma. I grew up in this area. I grew up in Penasquitos, went all the way through Poway Unified, graduated from Mount Carmel. I went on to earn a bachelor's in criminology. I graduated from the San Diego County Sheriff's Academy. I have 2 teaching credentials, a master's in education, and I have a PhD in human services criminal justice. My dissertation focused on No Child Left Behind. I actually concentrated on all of the suspension, graduation, and expulsion rates of all the high schools in all of San Diego County pre and post the No Child Left Behind. My husband, a former Marine, we moved to Poway 18 years ago. When we knew we wanted to raise a family, we wanted to have them go through the best schools in the county. I have a daughter, an 8th grader at Twin Peaks, and I have a 4th grader at Garden Road Elementary. I began my professional journey as a correctional deputy for the San Diego Sheriff's Department. I then transitioned to teaching, where I taught in both general and special ed in San Diego Unified and wore many hats, from resource specialist to special day class teacher. I created a learning resource center. I helped open an alternative high school. I worked with struggling readers. After earning my doctorate, I transitioned to the university. For the past 16 years, I have been a professor at National University. My diverse credentials have allowed me to teach in courses across the board. I've also the design has allowed me to volunteer at the elementary school in every capacity, on the PTA, supporting the foundation. I've been at the middle school as well. There hasn't been an educator on the board in quite some time. And I've had boots on the ground, and I hope to be able to represent the teachers and the community and speak on behalf of all of our children. Thank you.
Great, thank you both. Okay, on to our questions. So our first question for the evening, and 1 minute each to answer. Cindy, you will be going first, is what do you consider to be the most important tasks and responsibilities of the school board trustee position?
The most important task of a school board trustee, I think, is to be a presence at the school. Not only when you're a presence at the school, you can be a more effective voice when you're behind closed cabinet conversations and your public board meetings, knowing that you are speaking to the parents, speaking to the teachers, that you're not just a name on a letterhead or showing up for a photo op, but to be a presence and to be a part of the community that you're representing.
Thank you very much. All right, Jimmy, would you like me to repeat the question?
Yes.
Okay, what do you consider to be the most important tasks and responsibilities of the school board trustee position?
I believe the most important role of a board trustee is to actually hire and evaluate the superintendent. I think that you're like the one check and balance as a board to be able to make sure that our superintendent is doing everything he or she says they're going to do. We've had issues with that in the past, but I think as a board trustee, you're the one check and balance that we have on our superintendent, make sure that her vision is aligned with our goals and the community's goals going forward with our children. So that's where I would focus my attention on. Again, I know they're getting ready to start setting some goals for the superintendent. And so I think those are incredibly important. I've had experience in the past, not only in the military, but setting goals and evaluating performance, but it's exactly what I do in my day job as a program manager, mentoring and monitoring, 45 different engineering personnel. So that's something I'm very comfortable doing and I don't take lightly.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so for the second question, we'll start with Jimmy. Again, 1 minute for answers. What are the greatest needs in the schools in District E, and how do you propose to address them? So
going around talking to a number of administrators, teachers, and even some of the students, if you will. Outside of COVID, that's been the biggest concern, is like, how do we get back to the classroom? And then now there's so much concern with that. But the other issue that the underlying issue I've been hearing about is this concern of social inequity, about having enough resources and being represented at the district table. A lot of times that this is the first time that this district is being is up for a contest as far as being electing a candidate that represents the constituents in District E. Before it was at large, so they never felt like they had a voice at the table. They never felt like there was somebody that was representing their interest at the district table, and that's what I plan to do, is to engage the community, understand what their needs and desires are, and to effectively speak for them at the table.
Thank you. Cindy, what are the greatest needs in the schools in District E, and how do you propose to address them?
Right now, I think with the current times, I feel like some of the current needs that we have are outdoor learning spaces are essential. With our kids coming back onto campus, some just started this last week, and we've got a bunch more of our elementary schools, the rest of them all going back on Monday, that the safe learning spaces, the district has done a tremendous amount of work. But the outdoor learning spaces will continue for them to effectively learn, and it's a more inviting environment for the kids to be outside, breathing the fresh air. The social equity is incredibly important right now. A lot of the kids are coming forward and saying that please hear us, and the district is listening, and that needs to keep happening. The materials that are being supplied to the classroom, there's supplemental resources. I know that there's conversations that have happened with teachers and students, and right now there's a lot of outdated materials that those materials need to be updated.
Great, thank you. Okay, so this next question, Cindy, will have you start. It is, how would you rate the communication between board members and the community? And what specifically would you do differently or the same?
Directly from the board members currently, I haven't seen direct communication from any of the board members. The board meetings, the minutes are synthesized and available for public read, or you can tune into the board meetings. But as far as direct communication, I don't see that. There's been a handful of times where we've had board members present at Garden Road, and I've been there and I've gotten to meet with some of them. I've never actually personally met board member Beatty, who represents this area, but I have met all the others who've been in attendance at Garden Road. And what I would change is that, being a board member, you need to be present at the schools.
Thank you. Jimmy, how would you rate the communication between board members and community, and what specifically would you do differently or the same?
Yeah, so as I mentioned before, this is the first time this district is going up for contest, and where the person being elected will be represent this actual district. So Kimberly Beatty was elected at large, so she had a much larger scope. She was never actually, representing this particular district when she was elected. That's something that's definitely going to change. And so, and this is no knock on anybody. It's just something that's just changing. Where we're going to be elected, there's like to represent all 7 schools. So we'll be able to be engaged and be able to have that more effective communications that directly relate to each school and their needs that's required for them to be successful. And them being the administrators, being the teachers, being the workers, the staff, and then as well as the parents and students. So that's kind of the idea, is to be able to be engaged, be informed, and then be able to have an effective communication that's on a regular basis, again, addressing the needs and the concerns of the constituents.
Thank you. Okay, let's see. So this time, Jimmy, you'll begin. How would you evaluate whether the superintendent is performing well? What criteria would you use in that consideration?
Well, she's a leader of the district. She's responsible for quite a few people in here in the district. So we're talking like close to 140,000 people, plus to 36,000 students. How would I? One of the criteria I think in leadership is how transparent are they being, and whether or not they hold themselves accountable. So those are probably the 2 biggest things that I would look at any leader. How effective are they being, and are they is their message getting across to people? And then when they do make a mistake, are they admitting to it? Are they pointing fingers at someone else, or where's that blame going to go, if there's any blame at all? But I'm looking for someone that's open and honest, and that's willing to be held accountable, and not be afraid to admit to mistakes, as long as they're, of course, willing and able to get better at that. It's just when I see people that they get in trouble and they try and hide their mistakes or something like that, that's really concerning for me. And I see it all the time in the real world. So it's one of those qualities and character traits I look for.
Great. Cindy, how would you evaluate whether the superintendent is performing well, and what criteria would you use as part of that consideration?
Excuse me. Well, currently the superintendent is formally evaluated by the board each year. I would love to see the whether formally, informally, that teachers have an opportunity to participate in that evaluation, even for feedback to the superintendent, as they're the ones that are in the classroom with the students that deal with the teachers, and they can, say if, the top-down approach, is it being effective in the classroom. I talk to the teachers all the time, and would like to, I think the superintendent might like to hear from all of her constituents and their thoughts. But I agree with Jimmy in fact that it needs to be an honest individual, trustworthy, and owning up to what's going on, and being transparent, so that and that's been a big issue with the community, is transparency across all administrative levels and board levels, as the community wants to know who is representing them, and that they are being upfront and clear with what's going on.
Thanks. Everybody's being so concise in their answers. So next question, Cindy, this goes to you first. Do you feel the district should make another attempt at passing an infrastructure improvement bond? And if so, what would you recommend that the administration do differently to ensure it passes this time?
Okay. I do not feel that right now is the right time for the school district to revisit another bond measure. I feel like while I liked the way the last bond was written, I feel like the rollout was too fast, and there wasn't enough time for all the stakeholders to really take the time to get the buy-in and learn all the pieces of the bond. It does need to be revisited, as by the year 2023, 60% of our schools will be in the infrastructures will be considered in a poor condition. And how would I go about that is back the timeline up. I think it was written well, but I think that timeline needs to be back up so that there can be more opportunities for town halls and conversations.
Thank you. Jimmy, do you feel the district should make another attempt at passing an infrastructure improvement bond? And if so, what would you recommend that the administration do differently to ensure that it passes this time?
Yeah, I do think they need to pass another bond. I know they're not going to go after this election cycle. So we're looking at 2022. I think the school district needs to start now by just building the community relations with everyone, let them know all the good things we're doing, because trust was an issue. They try to go a little bit too fast as far as getting public information out there and doing these workshops. But I think you can start by doing that now. And so community relations, I think, has been really challenging for this district. And I'm not just talking about like all the needs that they're kind of posing to everybody, but telling the good story too. So back in June, we had at the school board, one of the CFDs, they were able to pay it off early, and it saved the community $2.1 million. Well, that was buried in the minutes. So why not get that kind of information out to show that, hey, we are doing what the best interest, we have fiduciary responsibility, and we're doing everything we can for the community. That kind of information needs to come out now, so we can start building that rapport, building that level of trust with the community. So when we do come back and ask for a school bond to help with our facilities, which I totally agree with needs to happen, then there's more trust that's built into this relationship between the community. I went a little bit over for you.
Thank you. Okay, so let's see. I think this one goes to Jimmy first, if I'm remembering correctly. If Prop 15 passes, PUSD would get more revenue from property taxes in theory. Where should the district allocate this money if it passes?
That's a great question. So I would like to see more counselors in the school. I would like to see some of our buildings get the help that they need with some of the maintenance going out there. I would like to see more enrichment programs that we kind of had to scale back on. There's lots of different ways, but I mean, I'm not the one to make the decision, but I would like to hear what the experts in the school district have to say and to kind of evaluate that. But social and emotional learning is one of my big priorities. So I would love to see more funding going towards that, to have more counselors on campus, or at least accessible to students. So that's kind of where I would kind of focus my some of those programs, some of those extra funds if that was the case. But that's really something to consider once that money comes in, so we know how much it is and know what we can afford and how to prioritize those funds. So that's kind of a more technical question, that more appropriate for a better time when it actually happens.
Thank you. Cindy, if Prop 15 passes, PUSD would get more revenue from property taxes if it passes. Where should the district allocate this money?
Okay. Well, as I mentioned, I think outdoor learning spaces across all of our schools are kind of critical right now. And I think it's going to be sort of the norm for a little while. I would like to see our programs and our trade programs enhanced, not taken away. Right now, I think that they're safe, but not all of our kids are going to go to college. Not all of our kids can go to college. We don't need everyone to be a doctor. We need people who are working at all levels, and those trade programs are going to encourage those kids to know that they've got a successful career out there that maybe is not college. And curriculum for ethnic studies right now, I think is really important across all grade levels.
Thank you. We're gonna go on to the next one, and Cindy, this will go to you first. How would you rate the district administration's handling of the closing and reopening of schools during this pandemic? Would you recommend doing anything differently?
The closing of the schools was swift. I mean, it was one night they were talking about it at the board meeting. The next day, everybody was sent home. Take your materials with you. We could talk about what happened in the spring with distance learning. I haven't met too many people who were impressed. I definitely wasn't one either, but we had something. I've seen what other schools did across the school, and we had something. Where we are right now, I think is, I think we're ready. The efforts of the board and the administrative team it's impressive what they've done. I'm a substitute teacher, a long-term sub at Garden Road, and the exhaustive efforts that they have put in to make it a safe, inviting environment for our kids to be welcome back. I think we're ready. I know teachers still have some things that they want to say and get out there, and there's going to be little tweaks that need to be made once kids roll onto campus. But I think that they have done what they can right now, and they need to just see how it goes.
Thank you. Jimmy, how would you rate the district administration's handling of the closing and reopening of schools during this pandemic? And would you recommend doing anything differently?
Yeah, I think I would. The closing was pretty fast, and I think they handled that quite well. I mean, we did what we could during the spring, but I was really impressed with the way they got the online learning curriculum up and ready to go. Put everything on Canvas, so it was much easier to navigate than the spring. I am a little concerned that we are opening maybe a little bit too soon. I would love to have seen online learning be extended for, we found out we're going to open up September 2nd, 2 weeks in. We were ready to start coming back on campus. Nothing really had changed with the pandemic and the numbers there. I might be a little more risk averse here, but I really think we missed an opportunity to try out, and not try out, but to really work on improving our distance learning. I would like to have seen give people a chance to get used to it, and then to be able to set a date, set like a marker that we can all kind of march to, and then find out once we get to that date, we can reevaluate the situation and whether or not we're going to open up, give all the stakeholders a chance to get ready and prepared to open up. Because right now there's a lot of anxiety in the community as to whether or not they're going to be opening up or not opening up. Parents want to switch back from online or from on campus to online because they're just not ready. So it's a really big task, but I'll stop here. Thanks.
Thanks, Jimmy. Okay. Another question regarding COVID. And so Jimmy, this one will go to you first. While students returning to campus are required to wear masks, it has been observed that some teachers and administrators have not always worn masks in settings where others are present. If you were a current trustee and this were brought to your attention, what would you do?
Well, Yeah, I'm a big proponent of leading by example, but if an issue like that was being brought to my attention, then I would obviously, I do believe in handling it at the lowest level possible, but I would make sure that, you know, the superintendent and as well as some of the directors that are involved are aware of that, because I think it's important that we lead by example. And if we're, you know, going from a school board trustee, now we all have to be there regardless. So then I think everybody should be wearing a mask unless there's a medical reason not to be wearing masks. But I think if we're going to require of our students to be wearing it, then faculty and staff should be wearing them as well. So that for me is just more about leading the right way.
Thank you. Cindy, while students returning to campus are required to wear masks, it has been noted that some teachers and administrators have not always worn masks in settings where others are present. If you were a current trustee and this were brought to your attention, what would you do?
Well, I've had this conversation with the principal at Garden Road, and I know there are no exceptions to the mask. It's students and staff, and and if there's an issue, then there's a virtual option for students to be home. If there is a medical condition, then they're not accepting doctor's notes, then virtual is the option for that child if they cannot wear a mask. It should be handled at the school level. If they're not wearing a mask, the principals need to be on board to remind a staff member to wear their mask, or a staff member, a teacher needs to remind a student or let a parent know if his child is having a hard time, that they may need to rethink the virtual option. But if that's the guideline in place, then everybody should have a mask in place, but it should be handled at the lowest level right now.
Thank you. So we have 4 questions left on our list, of the official list from the board. It seems like we're running really smoothly here. We may have a few minutes left over for some questions from attendees. And I noticed that there is one question there in the chat. If any other attendees have questions that aren't asked by the end of this, go ahead and add them. And if we have a minute or two, we'll try to squeeze in a question there. Okay, let's see, Cindy, to you first. Before COVID, the threat of school shootings was a leading safety concern. Some politicians suggested allowing select teachers and staff to be armed. What are your thoughts on this idea?
I've had this conversation at the university level. Definitely very controversial. I am not a fan of, I'm not in favor of teachers carrying a loaded weapon onto campus. I think there's plenty of other ways that they should be trained to protect themselves. Students shouldn't have weapons. Teachers shouldn't have weapons. I think that you're opening yourselves up to more issues. Some might disagree with that, but I don't think that teachers should be carrying weapons on campus.
Thanks. Jimmy, before COVID, the threat of school shootings was a leading safety concern. Some politicians suggested allowing select teachers and staff to be armed. What are your thoughts on this idea?
100% absolutely not. I don't believe in any guns on school campus. I'm advocating for more counselors for one. So I think we can take care of our children's safety by having proper protocols. I know all schools currently have video surveillance. We can have doors locked during school hours, and there's lots of ways to protect our children. And I don't think bringing on any kind of assault weapon or gun on campus is the right solution. So I'm totally against it.
Okay. Thank you. Okay, so Jimmy, to you first. Poway Unified is a safe haven district. Would you vote to maintain this initiative for our schools? Why or why not?
Yes, I'm an advocate for being a safe haven school for sure. I think most of my campaigns about speaking up for the child or the family that doesn't have a voice at the table, and so I think being able to protect our children and making sure they have all the resources necessary to be successful it's a primary principle of mine, not just as a candidate, but just as a human being. So I'm definitely in favor of that.
Thank you. Cindy, Poway Unified is a safe haven district. Would you vote to maintain this initiative for our schools? Why or why not?
Yeah, I'm 100% behind us maintaining us being a safe haven schools for students. I am a huge advocate for equality and equity for all of our students. A lot of students are afraid to advocate for themselves, and I see that firsthand. I've had personal experience with that, and that's why they need the teachers and maybe other friends who are not afraid to be a voice for them until they can have that confidence. But across the board, all of our students should know that they have a safe place to go, because for so many of them, home is not a safe place, unfortunately. So, and providing the services that they need at school, so they know at least for 8 hours a day, 6 to 8 hours a day, school is their safe place to get those questions answered, to learn something, see what's in the future for them, and build that confidence so they can speak up on behalf of themselves.
Thank you. Okay, Cindy, to you first. The President of the United States has proposed banning the 1619 project from being taught in schools, and instead proposes teaching the 1776 Commission's curriculum. And I'm happy to explain either of those if you'd like. What is your response to this proposal by the President?
Could you explain the second one?
Sure.
I'm sorry,
so,
the first one.
Yeah. So for the attendees as well, so the 1619 project is a New York Times project that seeks to reframe the telling of the birth of America through the eyes of slaves and those who have not commonly been included in the history of the United States. The 1776 Commission is something that the President of the United States proposed in response to the 1619 project, that is to try to celebrate the founders and the history of the United States as we've commonly been taught. And so what is your response to this proposal?
The formation of a country, of our great country, it's messy. And it's important to tell what happened. We are a beautifully diverse country, and all of the ethnic groups need to be represented. Most of them were a part of that very messy formation. Yes, all of the forefathers of our country are white, and the names are on the Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence, but they are only a small representation of the country that existed then, and it is that piece that needs to be told, so that mistakes were made. There was people were unjustly treated, and in order to learn from our mistakes from then, the whole purpose of history is to learn from it and tell our children and our children's children how our country was formed, but how much we have grown from it, and to be able to be where we are now. We're making mistakes right now, but we can learn from these as well.
Thank you. Jimmy, the President has proposed banning the 1619 project from being taught in schools, and instead has proposed teaching the 1776 Commission's curriculum. What is your response to this idea?
I think the President, well, I'm a proponent of the 1619 project. I think it offers an opportunity to critically look at our history and how we've come to learn it. I was at the Naval Academy, and I was a history major, even though I had a Bachelor of Science. So we spent a lot of time looking at history and kind of dissecting it, and then thinking through what actually occurred and how it was written. And so I think it's good to have another, project, we'll call it project, but having another curriculum out there that really addresses the social inequities that go way back, or the social injustices that were happening way back. I don't think it's an attack on our founding fathers. I think our current president would like us to think that it is. So you have your pin between one or the other, but I think I don't think it discredits any of our founding fathers, or they're just a product of the time that they grew up in, and that they were be able to be helping out the society in the ways that it did. I don't think it attacks our values, but I do think it offers a very important point in history where we can actually go back and be real with what actually occurred. Other countries have done this. I've seen Germany. Germany does the same thing with the Holocaust. They actually take a real look at it, and they kind of go for it. All right.
Thank you. Why don't we stay on that same topic for an additional question, because I'm going to include a question that has been asked by an attendee in the chat here. I'm going to reword it slightly. Do you support a requirement that all PUSD students take one or more classes in ethnic studies by the time they graduate? And that one goes to Jimmy first.
Yeah, not only one or two classes. I think it's something that we should incorporate all the way from starting from when we start teaching social studies and history to our students in elementary school. And I think that's just something we should carry all the way through middle school and to high school. I know there's the California Ethnic Studies that was just kind of shot down by Gavin Newsom, just vetoed it recently. But I think once they figure out what's going to be entailed in that curriculum, I think it's something we should get out to our schools right away. And again, start earlier, more often the better. So I'm a big proponent for ethical studies in our schools.
Thank you. Cindy, do you support a requirement that PUSD students take one or more classes in ethnic studies by the time they graduate?
I'm 100% behind that. I know that AB 331 was passed with no funding. But I know that our district is working on getting some curriculum in place. You know, I think it's critical, as I mentioned earlier, that and like Jimmy also said, that it needs to start at the younger level and work all the way through. It can take the older they get, the deeper the dive they can take, and that is really the only way that we're going to truly see all the bumper stickers, erase racism, is if we can work with our kids when they're younger to understand that, you know, what we have here is a beautifully diverse community, and you don't have to like everybody, but to respect our differences. And our cultural differences, our ethnic differences, is that it's what makes us so unique and a beautiful place to live in. So, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, switching topics. Where do you stand on charter schools? And this one goes to Cindy first.
I've worked at a charter school. So where the funding is really different, it kind of is like on an island within a district, and they can kind of do their own thing. And some feel like that's a great some teachers feel like this is great because I can dance to the beat of my own drum, while others don't feel like they have a voice because they're sort of like left aside. That's kind of how I felt being a special ed teacher. I didn't feel like I had a voice at the table. That so it's a unique place to be in, and I think I'm not a huge fan of charter schools because they fall under the umbrella of the district, but they have their own program going on there, but yet the funding and everything else is expected and in place of it. So I'm not a big fan of charter schools. If a parent wants to look for a school that's right for their student, then let them find a school, whether it be another public or private, that's right for their student.
Thank you. Jimmy, where do you stand on charter schools?
Yeah, I don't see a need for any charter schools here in North County. I worked at one as well for when I first got out of the Navy, and I worked at one, and I saw lots of there was no protections for any of the staff or the teachers there, so I had a real issue with that there. So I don't, in North County, I mean, there might be specialized reasons to have a charter school, but I don't see any reason for that here in North County.
Thank you. Okay, and this is the final question that we have on the official list that we've compiled ahead of time. But if any attendees would like to ask an additional question that we haven't already asked tonight, or would like a follow-up on one of the questions that we asked tonight, go ahead and just type it into the chat, and then we will take a look. We do have just a couple minutes left, so maybe time for one more. Okay, so last question from our list. This one goes to Jimmy first. 70% of high school students say anxiety and depression is a major problem. That's according to a 2018 Pew survey. What is the district doing right when it comes to teenagers' mental health, and what should it be doing differently?
Well, the first and foremost, they're addressing it. They know it's an issue, and they're trying to bring in these little ad hoc programs to help out with that. I think Caring Connections is a really good program that the district has implemented, so that's a really positive sign. But I still don't think our students have enough accessibility to the right help. And I have an initiative that I've talked about in previous forums where you have an internship program basically that's set up with a relationship, that's set up a strategic partnership, let's say, with other universities, where they have interns that are trying to go into the social worker or go become counselors. they need their hours. So let's get a program going where we can have them integrated into our school system, where we could actually afford some accessibility to some of these skills that we can teach our students to help them cope with adversity and anxiety. And now more than ever with Zoom being able to do this, it makes it much more accessible, where you can do this telehealth with an intern and a student, and just teach them some simple mental and life skills that will help them accelerate their performance in life, in academics, in sports, when you name it, we can do that for them. So I think we need to do a much better job at building those strategic partnerships with the community.
Thank you. Cindy, 70% of high school students say anxiety and depression is a major problem. That's according to a 2018 survey, Pew survey. What is the district doing right when it comes to teenagers' mental health, and what should it be doing differently?
I believe it. I work very, very, very closely with a large group of 8th grade girls, and I see it with all of them. It's been particularly heightened with COVID. And I think the district is really aware of it. They've had some really good things in place, but there's definitely a lot room for growth at our secondary levels. Internships, bringing in kids who are, nearing the end of their social school psychology program, their mental health. There's a whole umbrella of different mental awareness programs to bring them in to support, even just to have that, kind of big brother, big sister conversation to give someone to talk to. A lot of the kids are having these anxieties because right now they're isolated and not talking. But kids will be more successful if they feel like if their mental health is intact, they're going to feel a whole lot better about going into a test or presenting themselves to the world.
Thank you. I'm not seeing any additional questions in the chat, so I'm going to ask a follow-up on that one. Cindy, do you feel that Poway Unified puts too much pressure on students to attend a 4-year university? I
do. I feel, as I mentioned, I did my whole my dissertation on no child left behind, and a lot of that focus is our kids going to college. We don't need them all to go to college. We need people we need mechanics. We need people in grocery stores. We need taxi drivers. We need a whole host of occupations that don't require a college education. Does a college education matter to someone? Sure, it's personal. Is it going to get you in the door for a job? Sure, it's going to look great. But do we all need them? No. I think it's okay to let kids be dreamers. They need to dream. But I think some of the site is so focused on college and the testing that some of our kids feel like if they know that they are struggling in school and that college is never going to happen, they start to shut down. That's why the trade programs need to remain intact. Thank you.
And Jimmy, same question. Do you feel that the district puts too much pressure on high school students to attend a 4-year university?
Yeah, so I don't know if that's all in the district or some of the parents as well. So I know the district is addressing that. They changed their mission to include college and career and as well as life. Preparing them for life as well. So I think that they're doing a really good job with career pathways, and they're trying to make that available to everybody in whichever career you choose. But I also think our academic counselors need to do a better job of assessing the students and being able to figure out are they ready for college? I mean, how many people know that your high school student can go to the community college and take 7 credits for free and just try out and see if they actually enjoy college before they get to the point where they graduate from high school. There's lots of ways you can kind of massage someone's academic career, and I think our academic counselors need to make sure that our students know what the different ways are, whether it's college, whether it's career pathway, or whether just getting ready for life. And so there's lots of different ways we do. So I don't know that the district bears all the responsibility of that. I think they've changed their mission, and they've kind of addressed this situation by providing different paths. But I think parents need also to come to the table and see what's best for their child as well.
Thank you. So that is all the time that we have for questions. I do see that we did get one more in at the last minute, but we do need to get to closing statements and then wrap up so we can get our next session on track. So we're now going to go to closing statements, and it's 2 minutes each. So we're going to have Cindy begin because Jimmy began the opening statements. So Cindy, 2 minutes to you.
Thank you. I've dedicated most of my adult life to schools and children programs. It would be a great honor to be able to continue to make a positive impact on children on a greater scale. The significant amount of time that I have spent at the Garden Road campus has allowed me to experience firsthand the disrepair of some of our buildings, the limited availability of resources, and the challenges that staff face. On the flip side, I have also had the privilege of seeing how amazing things can happen when we partner with the community and parents can come together to bridge those gaps. I know that my work with students of all abilities and ages puts me in a position to advocate for every child. I know the struggles that teachers face. I understand the need for volunteers and financial giving. And even in the face of this great adversity, I refuse to let any of our children get less than the outstanding education that brought my husband and myself to this great district 18 years ago. My wealth of experience has me perfectly positioned for this role, and I hope you will support me this November so that I may rise to the challenge of representing our children at the district level. I have a successful track record of dedication, passion, working cohesively with a team, transparency, and follow through. These characteristics will continue to be at the forefront of my efforts as a school board member. Thank you.
Thank you. Jimmy, 2 minutes for your closing statement.
All right. So I've served in the Navy for over 24 years, and I made a huge difference in everyone that I've served with, and I really take pride in being able to provide a supportive culture that everyone can benefit, everyone in the community can benefit. Anyone that I touch or talk to, I like to know that I'm there to help serve them, and it's something I want to do for this community as well as a school board trustee. When you look at our current school board members, and you might, there's a lawyer, a scientist, a real estate agent, but nobody has the experience that I bring. I bring the military background to the table, which I know, talking to some of our military families, we definitely need that voice at the table so they can be heard. There's definitely things that we can do better. None of the school board members have an MBA. None of them have the business background that I bring to the table, and none of the school board members have this academic administration experience that I bring, or this academic counseling experience that I bring to the table as well. And as I've talked about the importance of holding the superintendent responsible, and I have that experience and knowledge on how to do that, how to set goals and how to hold people accountable. And this will be the first time that the voters in District E will get a chance to elect their trustee. So it'll be the first time that they will be represented. And I've spoken to a number of people in the district. I've distributed over 12,000 door hangers from all over District E. And so I'm really proud of that, being able to get out and see where people live and talk to the very few that I've been able to talk to due to COVID. But I reached out and I've spoken to all the administrators and teachers and parents. And I know that there's concerns with social inequities and social injustice and safely getting back on campus. But most importantly, in my mind, it's this concern of not being heard and not being represented at the district table. And by electing a candidate that's susceptible to pressure, or other board members for that matter, is not what we need. I think it's time to vote for a candidate with the experience, track record, and courage to make the difference in the community. And it's time to vote for a candidate with moral and ethical values in line with our community, a candidate who has a history of building long-lasting relationships and knows how to foster a sense of trust, belonging, and dignity within the community. I'm hoping to have earned your vote today, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you to both of you, Jimmy Karam, Cindy Sytsma. Thanks for taking time out every evening to answer our questions. We really do appreciate it. And thank you again for running for office. A reminder to all attendees that ballots have been mailed out. If you didn't get yours today, they're coming. The Poway Democratic Club is holding its ballot review on Thursday evening. We're going to go over every race and proposition and measure that appears in Poway's ballots. So you can, if you haven't already, you can sign up for our mailing list on our website at powaydemocraticlub.org for more information. Our next session begins here in 10 minutes at 7 p.m. And we're going to be speaking to Mayor Steve Boss and Senator Joel Anderson. These are the candidates for County Supervisor District 2. So we hope you will join us then. Thank you so much, everybody.
Thank you.
I'm ending recording now.